What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And today we're going to be talking about a New York Giants player and a Kansas City Chiefs player, but not the Kansas City Chiefs player that you think we're going to talk about. Definitely not talking about Kadarius Toney, though I'm sure somehow, some way, he will end up talking about us later on this evening, but we will ignore him because we are better than him, and he needs to find better things to do with his time. If you're keeping up with the news, Kadarius Toney is going on a rampage against Giants fans, but we will not engage. Today, we're going to talk about Travis Kelce and how the way that the Kansas City Chiefs have used him in their offense could be similar to the way that the Giants are planning on using their new acquisition, Darren Waller, in their offense. Of course, there's an obvious connection here. Mike Kafka, formerly with the Kansas City Chiefs as the quarterback's coach, has learned a thing or two and definitely implemented a lot of those principles from the Chiefs playbook into the Giants playbook. And now Darren Waller could definitely be used in a similar role, lining up in different places and at different receiving depths. There are some similarities to these two players' games. And again, when you look at the playbooks and the way that Mike Kafka has helped Brian Dable develop this playbook, I think that Darren Waller could be a sort of a copycat of Travis Kelce in the Giants offense this upcoming season. So we're going to go ahead and discuss that in today's episode. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comments section. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram and Twitter and on Threads, and check us out on Facebook. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Before we dive into it, 3 fan shout outs for today. Stephen RC, longtime viewer on the channel. You comment a lot, so shout out to you. Anthony Cure, I believe is how you say it, 3729, and Patrick Grove 3469. Thank you all for your support, and thank you to the entire Fireside Giants community. We love you. We appreciate you. And today, let's talk about Darren Waller. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend, and what are your thoughts on the topic?
I'm doing great, man, and shout out to all the fans, the great people that watch our content. Appreciate you very, very much, as always. And Darren Waller, guys, we've talked about him extensively this offseason. I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into how the Chiefs use Travis Kelce and kind of the production. Like, where does it come from? Like, where can we expect Darren Waller to get more involved? Now, we know Kelce is the best receiving tight end in football. We know that he is unstoppable. The guy scored 4 touchdowns in one game this past season. He is a monster. And Travis Kelce continues to do so. Look, he's 33, almost 34 years old, Travis Kelce. I don't know if you guys 30, 31. Like, he's got 2 years less than Travis Kelce. So I'm not when it comes to Darren Waller. Some people may be. I'm more so worried about the injury variable, where he's been a little bit down in the but if he can maintain that health, and he seems to be reinvigorated, excited and confident to join this Giants team, how can they maximize his kind of value? How can they maximize his production so he gives us the WR1 production that we're looking for at that really low $4 million cap hit? Well, you know, Darren Waller last season didn't do much, right? Only hauled in 17 catches, 0 to 9 yards, 7 catches, 0 to 19, and then 7 receptions, 20 plus yards downfield. He actually had the same amount of receptions, deep 20 plus and medium range. So you're seeing that his grades were phenomenal, you know, graded out really well as a receiver there, didn't drop a pass, had 182 yards downfield with 2 touchdowns. And if you look back at his 2020 season, which is where he really had his dominant campaign in the receiving game, he caught 198 yards worth, 20 plus yards downfield with 2 touchdowns, 270 yards medium range, 4 touchdowns. And then he had 622 yards and 3 scores in the 0 to 9 yard range. So you're seeing that he really had a lot of production in the red zone, where they were about maybe like right outside the red zone, where he was able to produce touchdowns in that area, but also in the shorter concepts where he was able to produce touchdowns really close to the line, really close to the end zone, like 0 to 9 yards away, essentially. And he's also had 5.7 yards after the catch on those short route concepts. So he was able to produce 40 first downs on throws, receptions that he hauled in 0 to 9 yards. So you're seeing that, like, he's not just a guy that the Giants are going to use to expand this teams, to get downfield, to use that speed and athleticism. He can very much be a really solid kind of security blanket underneath, running some legit routes. Like, he can run those slants, he can do those crossing routes, he can do all of the stuff that he wants from what would be like a traditional receiver, which is very unique. Like, you don't find tight ends with this level of route running, this level of talent very often. The Giants aren't just going to look at him as a downfield explosive weapon, and they will. This is not to say that he's not going to be involved in that area of the field, because he certainly has been in the past. But looking at Travis Kelce, it's a little bit, actually, it's not a little bit, it's a lot different. The short to 0 to 9 yard ratio here, 766 yards and 9 touchdowns. They freaking use this man when it comes to short route concepts and when it comes to touchdowns in the red zone areas. And the medium range, 627 yards and 5 touchdowns. He actually doesn't catch many passes 20 plus yards downfield. He just is such a good route runner. He's so physical. But you want to know what separates him from a lot of the other tight ends in the football? The chemistry he has with Patrick Mahomes. That chemistry between him and the quarterback position goes a really long way in actually boosting that offense, giving him the spacing necessary. Because you saw, like, you've seen the videos. I mean, I have. I don't know if you have, Anthony, but you watch him and Kelce, they look at each other, they lock eyes, and they know exactly what they're going to do. Like, it's almost like they know, okay, if this guy lines up this way, I'm going to give you a look, and then I'm going to run this route instead. Like, it's almost like they know that telepathically, they've already built this into their chemistry, where, like, if something is going on and I give you this look, or if I make this motion, I'm going to do this instead, and they don't even have to speak it. That's where you have a really difficult time as a defensive player when they aren't saying anything. You can't tell, oh, like, I've heard that before on film. I've seen that before on film. I know what's coming. You can't do that when they're not freaking speaking. It's a whole different level of chemistry here. That is where I think Daniel Jones and Darren Waller could develop something really special here. I know it's very young in their tenure together, their connection together. We're not going to see that immediately, but I would love to see them have that kind of speechless chemistry where, like, they just look at each other and say, you know what? I know this guy is going to try and bite down on this little button hook. I'm going to freaking fly right past him up the seams, hit me over the top at the second level. Like, that's the type of chemistry you'd love to see these two guys produce together. And Darren Waller's got that level of talent to be that level of player. So, Anthony, when you're seeing, like, what Travis Kelce accomplished and what he continues to accomplish as the best tight end in football with the Kansas City Chiefs, how can the Giants try and copycat that and put it in the Giants scheme? Because Mike Kafka knows Travis Kelce well, coached him well, helped kind of probably formulate that entire offense. The creativity that Travis Kelce is a part of, the little flips, the little flops in the red zone, the little use him as a running back sometimes. All those things that they use and the Giants used last year in the red zone, just not with the tight end position. I mean, Daniel Bellinger had a rushing touchdown last season. Very similar to what we saw with Travis Kelce in Kansas City. How do you think that they can kind of take some of the stuff that they do with Kelce and kind of translate it to Darren Waller?
I think a big part of that, kind of replicating the production of Travis Kelce and the stylage and the usage of him, has a lot to do with his alignment. So if you take a look at Travis Kelce's snaps by position, according to Pro Football Focus, last year, yes, the primary snaps that he played were at the inline tight end position with 400, but he also did play 388 snaps in the slot and 272 out wide. There were some weeks where he was lining up predominantly as a wide receiver. In week, what is this? This is week 9. He played 29 snaps out wide, 32 in the slot, and only 22 in line. So that goes by game basis. The following week, the majority of his snaps were in line, and he only played 8 out wide. It all depends on the matchup, and it all depends on finding those matchup advantages and utilizing the player in a creative way to get them in the right alignment to make those plays. And that's what the Giants are going to have to do with Darren Waller. So when Travis Kelce has one game where he's got 34 snaps in the divisional round of the playoffs in line, and then the next week, the majority of his snaps are in the slot, that's what you can envision with Darren Waller. There will be games where he does line up primarily as an inline tight end. He's going to have to do more blocking. He's going to be more of a short to intermediate route runner and receiver. But there will be other games where Darren Waller is going to line up on the outside and go up against the team's number one cornerback and put the work in as a wide receiver. There's going to be a lot of plays where you see him lining up in the slot, trying to take advantage of different linebackers, safeties, and slot cornerbacks that are not as fast as Darren Waller and not as strong as Darren Waller. So that's the key here to unlocking the potential and the skill set of Darren Waller. And of course, that's what the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce. You move him around the offense. You find those matchup advantages. You create a matchup nightmare. Nobody wants to guard Travis Kelce. Nobody wants to guard Darren Waller either. But Darren Waller is easier to guard when you know what you're getting on a down-by-down basis. If you're just lining him up as an inline tight end on every single snap, you know what you're getting. But when you start lining him up out wide and in the slot and in line and just move him all around the offense, that's where things get fun. That's how creative offenses in the NFL find success. And another thing about Travis Kelce, he is one of the premier red zone threats in the NFL. And it's not because he's strong and he can jump over people and make contested catches. It has nothing to do with that. The plays where Travis Kelce gets a goal line fade, they're few and far between. Why? The Kansas City Chiefs don't run goal line fades. The Giants used to with Jason Garrett. They never worked. Kenny Golladay could not go up there and catch those touchdown passes. Now, this past season, the Giants never threw those goal line fades. Why? Because they're the stupidest play in football. I've stood on this hill and I will die on this hill every single year. You are much better off creating a play like the Kadarius Toney touchdown in the Super Bowl where you move a guy in motion, you have him run a whip route, good route running, separation, easy walk-in touchdown. That's what the Kansas City Chiefs do. That's what the New York Giants started to do last season. And the result, the Giants had one of the most efficient red zone offenses in the league in Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka's first year with the team. So when we're going into this upcoming season, what do the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce? Do they throw him 50-50 jump balls on the goal line? Absolutely not. You'll see plays where they give him a shovel pass and then he runs through the gut right behind the center and rushes in for a touchdown. You'll see plays where he's a decoy running out into the flat and then you have a wide receiver coming over the top of him on a quick slant. That's what you're going to see from Darren Waller. Darren Waller, yes, there will be opportunities for him to make those contested catches. He will go up there and moss a couple players this season, hopefully, and most likely. But he's not going to be doing that every time the Giants get to the goal line just because he's the tallest player on the team. He's going to be getting open, and the Giants are going to use him in creative ways because he's just a playmaker. When you look at these playmakers, right, like even with Kenny Golladay and, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, all these guys that I've mentioned, they're so good at all of these different things. So when you put them into a box and say, oh, he's a tall guy, let's just throw it up to him and see if he can make the catch, you're limiting the skill set. So with Darren Waller, yes, his height is an advantage. His strength is an advantage. His ability to jump over people certainly is an advantage. But the real matchup advantage is his speed, his route running, and his football IQ. And that's why Travis Kelce is so good. So when we talk about how good Travis Kelce is in the Chiefs offense and why him and Patrick Mahomes have that level of chemistry and that level of success, it's about football IQ. Who is the smartest player on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs? You can argue, yes, it's Patrick Mahomes, but a close number two is Travis Kelce. So this upcoming season, Daniel Jones got to be the smartest player on the field. Last year, you could argue he was one of the smartest players on the field in all of football. 1.1% interception percentage, the lowest in the NFL. He kept the ball clean better than any other quarterback last year in terms of throwing the football. And who also has really good football IQ? Darren Waller, of course. This is a guy who plays all of these different positions on offense, lines up all over the place. You can't do that without a good football IQ. And he's found tremendous success over the past several seasons of his career whenever he was healthy. So this upcoming year, Alex, how am I envisioning this Darren Waller-led offense to look? I think you're going to see versatility be the emphasis. It's going to be the point of emphasis. They're going to move him all over the place. When they get down in the red zone, I think you'll see some bubble screens out to Waller. Let him turn up field or run through a cornerback and score. Wouldn't you rather throw the bubble screen to a big guy like Waller who can run over a guy and fall forward into the end zone than a smaller, shiftier guy who's just going to get thrown backwards? That's my mindset on it. So I think that you can create so many matchup advantages with Darren Waller. If there's a game where the Giants, let's say they're going up against a team, two elite cornerbacks, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to attack the safety because he's not as good as those other guys. Darren Waller, you put him in the slot, you get the safety matched up on him, let him run one-on-one, separate with that speed that he has. He's the fastest tight end in football, and he'll make some big-time plays. I am just drooling over the thought of this offense with Darren Waller. Okay, I'm getting excited. I'm getting hyped up right now. I'm sitting here wishing that it was September already. Wake me up when September is here, not when it ends. Wake me up when September's here. I want to watch some Giants football right now. I'm getting hyped thinking about Darren Waller in this offense. Daniel Jones dropping him some dimes. Mike Kafka, Brian Daboll typing it up and putting out a really great playbook for him. I can't wait. So, Alex, I said a whole lot there. I'm really hyped up. I know you are too. But when you're thinking about Darren Waller and the matchup nightmare that he can be for other opposing defenses, what about that do you think the Giants need to lean into to really unlock here? Because they have some good receivers. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Isaiah Hodgins is in line to take a really big step forward, but they don't have that elite, dominant number one wide receiver, right? So how does Darren Waller fit into that role? We've talked about it a few times in the past, but just being that matchup nightmare, what about Darren Waller in that role specifically excites you?
Well, I'm just glad that you just spewed out a Green Day reference. That was awesome. I was like, no way this guy knows Green Day. I mean, I grew up listening to Green Day. I know a lot of you guys probably grew up with Green Day just already there or like whatever it might be. This is definitely a good moment for me. That was such a good one. Love it. But nonetheless, Darren Waller, you know what it really comes down to? And, I could point to the scheme. I could point to the creativity and the other playmakers. But you want to know what really comes down? It comes down to Daniel Jones. You know what I mean? It comes down to Daniel Jones having the confidence and having the time in the pocket. Big emphasis on the offensive line here and their protection, and letting Darren Waller get open and his confidence in that chemistry. You want to know what was awesome to see last year, how quickly he developed chemistry with Isaiah Hodgins and how confident he was throwing the ball to Isaiah Hodgins. That chemistry was not broken the rest of the season. Like, he was throwing the ball to the man week in and week out, and he was confident. He was making sure to give him chances. He was throwing the ball into difficult spots, and he was coming out with big grabs. If Darren Waller earns Daniel Jones's trust, you're going to see some really nice plays out of that duo right there. You know what I mean? Like, because Daniel Jones will give players opportunities. He'll sling the rock. I think people don't give him enough credit sometimes in the terms of, like, he takes risks. At least last year and during his rookie season, we saw him take a lot more risks than usual. But I think now that you have players that will actually come down with those risks, it's not going to turn into an interception. They're not going to half-ass a route. They're not going to stop short. They're not going to run the wrong route. They're not going to get to the wrong spot when they need to be over there. Darren Waller is going to be at the right spot at the right time. That's what he does. He is a good receiver. He gets to the spot. He's a good route runner. He's decent hands. He's physical. He'll outmuscle. And if it's a 50-50 ball, usually it's not going to turn into an interception. At the very least, he'll knock it down. It'll be something that, both guys lose. I think that this chemistry right there is going to be the most important variable. And that's the most important variable when it comes to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. It has nothing to do with anything, but those guys are in perfect sync with one another. They are in lockstep. Are they both phenomenal players? Absolutely. But how many times have we seen teams put phenomenal players in a role and they stink because everybody else them sucks. Everybody else them flops. The season, everything has to go perfectly, right, to win a championship. The Giants are making significant strides, but now it's about coaching up these guys, developing the chemistry, giving Daniel Jones the time in the pocket, and good things will happen. I think that's really what we're coming down to here. But the chemistry between those two guys, that's what I'm going to try and copycat if I'm the Giants. I'm going to look at how Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have developed such a great chemistry, what they do behind the scenes, the film work, the communication, the stuff that they do without even having to speak. And I'm going to try and replicate that stuff because that's the stuff that breeds big moment plays, high octane offenses, significant moments when you don't expect it, when you need a big play, you need a big chunk of yardage. That's where that comes from. That unspoken chemistry between two players. And I think that's what I'm going to be trying to copycat from the Giants.
Yeah, and I will say, I think that Daniel Jones and Darren Waller have already started to make progress on that. They've had a few throwing sessions already. They did have some work to put in at mandatory minicamp and those OTAs earlier in the offseason. So I think that one of the main things that I'm going to be keeping an eye on once we do get to training camp in just a couple of weeks here. How often is Daniel Jones staying after practice to throw with Darren Waller? It's interesting because over at mandatory minicamp, Daniel Jones already started to do that with Jalen Hyatt. He was staying afterwards to help Jalen Hyatt get some extra reps in and work on their chemistry and their timing. And I imagine he's going to be doing the exact same thing with Darren Waller once training camp rolls around. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye. How much extra work are these guys putting in together, to build that chemistry? Because you think that it happened overnight for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce? Absolutely not. What they did, they got together. They got to work after practice, before practice, on their off days. That's how they developed that chemistry. And again, that's something that Daniel Jones and Darren Waller have already started to do. And I'm excited to see them continue to do that at training camp. So I can't wait for training camp. I know we have 6 days here until a really big decision between the Giants and Saquon Barkley, but a week after that, training camp kicks off, and I am so hyped. Football is almost back. The Giants are putting the pads on in the next 2 weeks. Can you believe it, Alex? I can't. I'm just so hyped. But of course, we're going to be updating you on all of the training camp activities and all of the news and rumors and the Saquon Barkley and not the Kadarius Toney stuff because it bores me and it annoys me, but everything else New York Giants related right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads at Fireside Giants. Check us out on Facebook as well. And we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.